What's up, guys? Welcome to NMD TV Kane. All day. If you're rocking with the U, then you know what to do. Hit the like and subscribe button. Today, I got my guy Chris. It's our weekly instant reaction. Miami improves to 5-1 after beating Virginia. What was it, 19-14? Let's just start with your biggest takeaway from the game, Chris.
Well, honestly, it was an ugly game. It was one of those games where you find yourself, 2.5 hours into it, and it feels like it's been 5 hours. With the kind of like the slog of the offenses on both sides, and like a lot of like quick drives that ended or they moved a little bit down the field and ended it with a punt, especially without any turnovers. So not a lot of big plays after Miami kind of sprung that deep shot early. But honestly, my biggest takeaway was last year we probably lose this game. Last year we probably turned the ball over in some key spots. Last year we probably don't have the receivers stepping up the way that they did today. Last year we probably let the running quarterbacks, get free a lot more than they did tonight, and have some big plays that end up at touchdowns earlier, and we probably lose. So I know it wasn't the prettiest game, and certainly a lot of people aren't going to be thrilled that we only beat a 1-3 team by 5 points at the end of the day. But a win is a win is a win. At the end of it, that's what matters. And they came out of this one 5-1, going into a little bit of time off to get their heads right, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, the fan base isn't happy. I'm looking at Twitter. A lot of people aren't happy, but hey, we are 5-1, and to me, I look at it as after last season, I'm going to cherish every victory. But I remember that year with Mark Richt when we ended up, we ended up losing to Pittsburgh, ended up losing to Wisconsin, ended up losing to Clemson too. And all that year, I defended that team. I said, well, hey, we won. Hey, we won. Long as we win, this is special. We won. And do you get that similar feeling? Like, we're winning these games, but it's not like we're better than these teams we're beating, but we're barely beating these teams.
Well, I don't think we're as good as after this week we're probably going to be ranked in the top 10 in the country. I don't think we're a top 10 team in the country. I don't think that, honestly, we can go to the coaches, we can go to a lot of things, but I don't think we have the players, like the overall talent that a top 10 team in the country should have. I feel like there's some big gaps skill-wise in a lot of spots that haven't gotten exposed quite enough. Obviously Clemson is a whole nother animal, but I don't know if we're that high up on the rank in terms of total pool of talent. So in that way, I think 5-1 is really great because it's definitely better than a lot of things the way things could have went. It's probably more of like a 4-2 team that would have lost one of those games and screwed something up along the way. So in that way, I'm happy to get the win, but I definitely understand what you're talking about. This is a team that, will struggle more in the course of the season. This is a team that will have offensive days like today where they can't run the ball at all. The offensive line did not look good. They looked weak. They looked overmatched at times, just like we did last week. So this is going to be the kind of game that we win more often than not. I don't know if we have another game like Florida State in us, but hopefully we don't have the curse of the bye week and we can kind of get our heads right and do something a little bit better and have another one of those weeks to kind of rebuild the confidence. But I don't think it's a great team, so that's why I'm more likely to be happy with the fact that we came out with a victory instead of kind of playing so far down to our competition that we let them bite us and beat us.
My biggest takeaway to this game is I think we're probably a 1 or 2 win team without De'Aaron King. I think there's been people, and there's people in the YouTube comments, there's people on Twitter who has the nerve to talk about De'Aaron King. And if you look at De'Aaron King's stats, they're there. But when I look at things like our O-line getting beat and De'Aaron King able to scramble for 10 yards, scramble for 1 yard, able to throw the ball away. If it's not for that ability, he's sacked and this offense would really look worse than it already is. I look at De'Aaron King as a constant leader, a constant professional at the quarterback position. So is De'Aaron King perfect? No. Does he have a lot to improve on? Yes. But let me know, do you agree with that or disagree with that? But my biggest takeaway, especially after seeing tonight, is I think we're a 1 or 2 win team at this point, if not for De'Aaron King. Tonight he went 21 of 30, 322 yards, 1 touchdown, and rushed the ball for 28 yards. What would you say to that?
I think he's definitely the kind of guy, like, before you talk about the talent, I think it's important you talk about the leadership and like the maturity that he has on the field. Like, that he's a guy who does all of the little things throughout the course of the week and all of the extra work after practice and all the extra minutes in the film room and all that kind of stuff. You never see him really rattled out there. And he's not like the biggest rah-rah guy, but if you don't want your quarterback to be that, you want your quarterback to be the steady hand, the gunslinger who can go out there and make a mistake and come right back and make a great throw. And I do think he had some great throws today. Like, he hit a couple of those big throws that in the past weeks we were kind of getting on him for missing. Some of those deep shots, especially the throw to Mallory on the first drive. The throw to Harley's going to get a lot of attention, but the throw to Mallory was great too. Put it in a position where he can make that catch. There's another throw to Mallory in the end zone where Mallory probably could have went up and gotten it. That was another great throw. I made a couple on the sidelines that you don't necessarily expect him to make with a lot of consistency. So like those, he made some really nice throws. I just think people are frustrated with the offense at times, especially like the run game, and they see little things and they're like, oh, well, if he would have completed that pass, it would have been, yeah, he'll miss some, sure, but all quarterbacks miss some. I think that the alternative to him, the alternative to King, would be a disaster in most circumstances. Like if it was still Jaron Williams, we'd definitely be a 1 or 2 win team. If it was N'Kosi Perry, as good as he possibly could be, with a lot of work, and I know it's very much in progress, we'd probably, be struggling quite a bit on offense too. If you put the kid in, you put Van Dyke in, who obviously lost today because of COVID, we're probably not winning a lot of these games just yet. So, he's the guy that, is getting us here. And as sketchy at times the offense has been, I think he's probably been the most consistent guy, especially with the receivers being up and down and the backs being up and down, and the line being down more than up lately. So he's really been the guy.
Hold up. If you're not signed up with the Patreon squad, aka the Kane Gang, then what are you doing? Get signed up right now. Link in the description and in the pinned comments. And for less than a cup of coffee, you can get the extra content, the exclusive content, the ad-free content, the early access content, the film breakdowns that I can't put on YouTube because YouTube will strike your boy down. Hey, we turning up on the Patreon squad, the Kane Gang. Get over there right now. Link in the description. And if you're already a member of the Kane Gang, I appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of this content. I'm moving my hands, a lot of hand movement. So we're going to stay on the offensive side. Guys, we do got Chris from Kane's Legacy. Make sure you check out my boy Chris's work on Kane's Legacy and also on Twitter. They do a really good job. All his information will be in the bottom. But we're going to stay on the offensive side, and let's talk about MVP Mike Harley coming out to ball today. Let's see his final stats. Ended up 10 receptions, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, and his longest was that 43-yarder at the start of the game. Maybe I'm just hallucinating. Maybe I'm just wanting this to be the reason. But I think because Manny Diaz came out and said, we're having an open competition at wide receiver, I think that lit a fire under Mike Harley's butt. And tonight is a Mike Harley that we've seen a little bit of, but tonight was the best game I've ever seen him play. What do you think about Mike Harley tonight, and why did he do so well tonight rather than the other games?
Well, you've seen guys on the roster kind of hit cruise control in the past couple of years. It happened under Rick a little bit. It's happened under Manny, where guys are like the upperclassmen, so they expect things. They expect to start. They expect this. They expect playing time. They never expect to be taken out or really questioned. Or if they make a mistake, they know that it's okay. I'll be back out there again. Like, that's not a big deal. And I don't know Mike Harley personally. Like, he seems like a really nice kid. But that's the kind of thing that, anyone could fall into that habit. Normal people fall into the habit at the regular workplaces, like I'm used to showing up at 9:05 instead of 9, it's not a big deal. Then all of a sudden it's 9:10 and then it's 9:15, so to expect a kid to not fall into similar habits when he's not getting checked with loss of playing time, then, it's kind of silly. Then when like you said, when they call it out and say, we're going to open this competition up, you would hope that an upperclassman would say to himself, I'm not losing minutes to these kids. I'm not going to take time off the field and have to go and sit on the bench. Well, my opportunity at making money down the line for myself and my family is going to be at stake if I lose all these snaps. So that's what you would expect and hope to see. And I think Mark Pope had a couple of those moments too, where that one catch along the sideline where he had to be physical to make the play, and he had to have good patience and balance, and he had to do all the things that a great receiver does. And he got his foot down. That was another little indicator of maybe him growing up a little bit too. So that was good. And I don't know if you saw this, but there was a play maybe towards the end of the second quarter where Mammarelli, he split out wide, and they were both at the bottom of the screen, like watching it. And Mammarelli was lined up on the line where he was covering up the tight end, and he should have been off the line. And so you could tell Harley, like, he starts yelling at him because he's lined up right next to him. Like, he's yelling at him to get back.
I saw that. He ended up grabbing his towel.
Yeah, and
yeah.
grabbed him and pulled him back and threw his towel down. Like, that's good stuff. That's the kind of stuff. Yes, that's what a leader does. He knows when other people are in the right position, the wrong position. They tell them, they fix it, and they correct it, and they move on in the future. That was a really great sign for me, because that means Harley knew exactly where everybody was supposed to be lined up in that part of the field. That's him being smart and playing the game of football, and that's the kind of stuff that's going to help everybody long term. That's the kind of guy King is. If we can get someone in the receiver room like that, then we're going to be a lot better off for it.
But then I got to call a spade a spade. Then later on in the game, he got called for being lined up wrong.
It happens. He's not going to be perfect, for sure. He's not going to be perfect. But, I'm just glad he's able to notice some of it when it comes up there.
He had a good game tonight, man. I thought him and Pope had a great game. I'm just wondering, why did it take tonight? Was it the matchup? Was it the coaches calling them out? Was it just they just practiced more? Why? And I'm asking this because he is a senior. I'm asking it because he is an upperclassman. So, is this something that is just something we saw tonight and we're not going to see it again? My guy went Super Saiyan tonight, and that's the last we're going to see it, or is he going to be consistent with making these plays? What would you guess?
Well, he had one big one last year, and he's got one big one this year. So, it's hopefully we get another one out of him before the end of the season. I just think that's kind of the guy he is. He's not like your prototypical number one receiver. He's not a guy that, you would expect to go out there and catch 6-7 balls every single game. He's a guy I expect to be quiet quite a bit when he's not able to get open. And he doesn't have, I know he's fast, but he's not like super elite fast. He's fast enough to get deep. He's fast enough to come across the middle of the field, but I don't consider him to be like a real burner, like in the Moss family mold. So, he doesn't have any elite traits. So there are going to be times when you could take him away pretty easily if you want to as a defense. Just how often do defenses really want to take away Mike Harley? Like if a defense keys on him next week, and they could probably eliminate him, it may open up Mallory a little bit more. It may open up Pope a little bit more. But I expect that to kind of be an up and down the rest of the way, just kind of, what we kind of come to expect of him. I would just hope that if he is used on the outside, he can continue to make those open catches down the field, because that's the one where he has been able to get open on, and he hasn't been able to come down with the catches through the course of the season. Like, I don't need him to go crazy, like you say, Super Saiyan. I don't need him going for 130 plus, every single day. I just need him to be able to make one of those kinds of catches, down the field, whether it's for a tough third down or for, like on a 1st and 10, we take a shot and try to get it like 20 plus down the seam or something. You give me one of those a game from him, and then the rest of it, let it be his little catch and runs and those kind of deals. Like, I'm good. I just need him to make one of those ones that he's been open for and King has hit him on and he hasn't been able to bring down. Like, just give me one of those a game, and I'm happy with Mike Harley's production, even if it isn't what we saw tonight.
All right, so we got MVP Harley, and I think you make a great point. What's going to happen after the bye week? What's going to happen after teams? You catch 10 catches a game in a game. Teams are going to key on you. So that's going to be interesting to see if he can bounce back, or was it just catching lightning in the bottle? I think that's what we all want to see. That's all we want to know. Thoughts on D. Wiggins? I mean, he made one good catch tonight, but I mean, I'm just not seeing it out of D. Wiggins, and I never want people to think I'm just getting on the kid, but I'm seeing missed blocks that almost ended up being a pick. The DB made a good jump, but I mean, you gotta tackle that guy or something. I mean, he just broke through on the tunnel screen. He just broke through, dropping tunnel screens, dropping passes in general. It just like I want to see if Harley is consistent with after what he did tonight. I'm not getting on D. Wiggins for having one bad game. This is something that has been consistent. It's just, what are your thoughts on him? I mean, he's just not producing.
Yeah, I just don't think he's very technically sound. I don't think he's super developed as a receiver. We get on Pope all the time about the mistakes that Pope makes, but you could tell Pope understands the position, and he just hasn't been able to kind of shake free and kind of reach that potential. Wiggins, there are times where it seems like he can only do one or two things well, and that's just kind of run straight and catch an open ball and streak into the end zone. He did it against Florida State last year, did it against Florida State this year. It's kind of his thing, but I don't know what else he can really do to help the team. So whenever people are talking well, we got to get the young guys in. Well, the first guy I would think about replacing would be him. Get somebody in for him. And then see what happens off of that, because I feel like you can use Pope in the slot, you can use Pope outside, you can use Harley in the slot, you can use Harley outside. So that those guys give you some versatility. So you want to mix in the young kids with those two as your three, great, give them the experience. Because with Wiggins, he's pretty much, you line about on the outside by himself and hope he can run by somebody, even though he's fast enough and he's tall enough, but it's not like he's this big physical specimen either. So he's just very limited with what he can do right now as a wide receiver, and I don't really see him progressing super well for a guy that, as a junior should be someone who's thinking about, am I going to be a pro? Am I not going to be a pro? He looks a lot like he did as a sophomore, which looked a lot like he did as a freshman. So, I'm just not seeing him develop as much as you'd expect. And I know a lot of people are like, well, Coach Lakin's coming in and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. He's going to change guys. Well, I mean, the guys that he turned into first-round picks are guys that, came from situations where they wanted it more than everybody else, like in N'Keal Harry. Look at the weight he put on, the strength that he got to, and Brandon Ayuk, physically he became something like a unicorn-type receiver with his size and his physicality. So these are guys that really wanted to become great. So I just don't see that with 8 right now.
All right, so we looked at that. What are your thoughts on the running game? I feel like besides a couple big-time runs against UAB and, of course, Florida State, I mean, we did everything against them boys because they bums. We haven't had a consistent running game. Why is that? What's the reason behind that? Because when you look at our running back room, to me, we got good running backs. We got King. What's up with our running game?
Well, I think the way to get a good running game, it's twofold. It's, having a good offensive line that can kind of just impose their will whenever they want, or scheming it and then having the scheme, constantly be shifting and adjusting to the course of a season so that no one can get ahead of you. And I think that people have caught up to our scheme and our running game, because you see it out there. It looks like we run the same play every time we want to run the ball. And it looks like when we're doing that, that King is basically handing the ball off to the back, on those read plays with someone right in his face. And he's just basically saying, all right, either I'm going to get hit or you're going to get hit. So he gives it the back just so he doesn't get hit. Like that's because we've done a lot of the same stuff through the course of the season, and we're not making enough adjustments in my mind. Like we're not going outside enough. Like when we started going outside later in the game with Cheney, trusting him to kind of get to the edge, it started working out a little bit better. When we started mixing it up a little bit and trying the outside zone runs, it started working out a little bit better. But when you're just running those interior reads, like you're basically hoping that Cam breaks a tackle, and if he gets past the first guy, maybe he gets into the second level, and they maybe committed to a blitz, and he can make one of those big plays that Cam does. But honestly, I think the line needs to play better. We need to get tougher on the interior because our guard center guard right now. I know we keep rotating the tackles, and everyone's like, oh, is this the combo? Is this the one that's going to work? Our guard center guard right now is weak. They look weak. They look like they get pushed around. And honestly, like DJ Scaife, I really thought he was going to be like a runaway. This is one of the best guys on the offense. He's the guy we could trust, and he's the guy we've been waiting for. And finally, he's back at guard, his natural position, and it hasn't happened. And it's been probably the biggest disappointment for me through the course of the season, to be totally honest, that he hasn't become a great player, because that's really hurting us on the interior.
Do we? Okay, that's going to be my next question. But this question, and I agree with a lot of what you said. I think it's the running game. I think it's a combination of a lot of things, our receivers, our offensive line, and then the play calling. It's so easy for me to say, I think we should do this, I think we should do that, because if they go out and do it and it doesn't work, I'm not going to get fired. I'm the YouTube guy. Manny Diaz, right. His job's on the line. So I don't want to make it seem like I have all the answers, but I think Robert Burns should be our short yardage back. And if not that, then I know one thing. If I got 1 yard to get, I don't think I want Jalen Knighton running that 1 yard when I have the options of Cameron Harris, Cheney, and Robert Burns. Do you agree with me on the Robert Burns short yardage back, red zone? And what are your thoughts and reasoning why we hand the ball off to Jalen Knighton on short yardage downs?
Well, I think with Knighton, they're trying to use his speed to make a play before the defense can react to it, and they're just trying to sneak him by, basically, because they figure that if a guy's going to get contacted in the backfield, then he's probably not going to get it anyway with how we run it out of the shotgun, because he's not going to have the momentum to kind of carry through. So they're hoping that Knighton can maybe get to the spot quicker, or knife through when he sees an avenue that the other guys can't. Because that's what you get with those, anytime you're running short yardage from a shotgun, you're basically, even though it says it's 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1, realistically it's 3rd and 3 or it's 4th and 3, because your back has to get through potentially 3 yards of traffic to get that first down. Which is why it's always frustrated me when you have a team that's primarily out of the shotgun. You have to have some kind of, you can't go under center for for a couple snaps a game just to kind of give them a different look, because it puts a lot of stress on your back to make that work, because it's usually not clear space he's running through as if it was coming from under center. So they're just hoping that Knight can kind of knife through. But I'm with you on the idea of try a guy like Burns to see what he does. And I don't think he's going to be anything special, but I do think he'll run straight as hard as he can and run into bodies and try to make a hole if anything, right? So I don't mind him going out there. I mean, we used Trayon Gray like that a couple years back. We let him go out there as a fullback. He iced that Florida State game for us back in 2018. Let some of those guys get those kinds of runs in. You use up his body and his power to see if he can't drive through with fresh legs, do all that kind of stuff and see where it goes. But yeah, Knighton is a great player, potentially a great player who still has to find his footing as a college player, and hasn't been quite as seamless as people were making it out to be early, because he's still got to learn how to do a lot of the little things that make running backs great, and that takes time.
I agree, and I'm the biggest Rooster fan. Rooster's gonna be a great back, and he's getting better every game. But it's just not as easy like you said, like a lot of people thought it was gonna be. But another reason that I think that I say that we should use him in the red zone is because at the end of games we put him into ice games. We put Robert Burns in to ice games. So that's telling me you trust Robert Burns. That tells me Robert Burns isn't going to play around. He's going to get you as many yards as he can. So I just don't understand why wait to the when you need to ice the game when you can use him in the red zone on 4th and short.
It must just be something like in their plan where they want to keep those certain guys. Maybe they want to keep Burnsy fresh for the end, or they're thinking like he's only got like 8 carries before he's blown up and he can't run anymore, so we want to save it for the fourth quarter. Or maybe they just think that we want to, if we put Burns in, then they know what he's capable of, so they're going to bring everybody up. So then like a night and where you maybe have to keep guys on the edge a little bit more active because you could break it out to the outside, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But I would like the idea of at least at the very least Chaney. I think Chaney's gonna in terms of like development as a college back, like he looked like a college back when he was like in 10th grade. He's always looked like a college back. So like I would be more likely to trust him in that spot, and I think that he's also a smart kid that once he sees a couple times where he gets knocked out or knocked back on one of those 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1s, I think he'll start to realize what he has to do in those short yardage situations and see the hole a bit quicker, because I feel like he's a person that's picking the game up really, really fast. Like he could be taking 15 or so carries a game sooner than later, especially if Cam is as dinged up as he at times seems to be.
I like Burns. I like Chaney, and Chaney's been moving that thing like you said. This is a guy who we've watched since he was a young buck, and to me, I'll say he's lived up higher than my expectation, and the only reason that is because I didn't think that we would rotate running backs as much, and because we are doing the rotation as much, we're getting to see what Chaney can do. I figured between the two, they would give Rooster a more of a shot, because I feel like Rooster is a different type of running back than Cameron Harris. And Cameron Harris and Chaney, they kind of remind me of each other. But seeing more of Chaney, I mean, he's hitting that outside. He's getting to me, he seems like he can do it all. Get to the outside, but he also be physical through the tackles and things like that too. So I'm definitely excited about our running back room in the future. I wonder what's it going to take for us to consistently be able to run the ball. Even at the end of the game, we have to throw it on 3rd and 8, and then we went for it on 4th and 4 was a pass because, that was a free play. It didn't get called, but I want us to be confident enough to be like, okay, it's 2nd and 8. We can run the ball 2 more downs or 1 more down, or 2 more downs and get the first down. That's what I mean by consistently running the ball, and I don't think we're there yet. So that's the offense. I think we touched base. Oh, Rhett Lashley. Any problems with Rhett Lashley? Some people say he's not creative. Some people say they're tired of the tunnel screens. I know I'm tired of the tunnel screens. So some people being me. Some people are saying, hey, we don't attack the middle of the field a lot. We're not. It's one series, and then the rest of the game we're just fluky. What are your thoughts on Rhett Lashley as a play caller? I have no problem with Rhett Lashley as a play caller. I think we're 6 games in. We still got a lot to work on. It's not you go and hire somebody and they can just make everything work. Is it possible? Yes. But most teams who hire a new coach, there's a learning curve, and we're still on that learning curve. Thoughts on Rhett Lashley, him calling the offense, his creativity?
Well, a lot of it is kind of making do with what you have. These aren't guys you picked for the most part. Like the quarterback, yes, it's someone that you picked out that you really wanted from the portal, but most of these guys aren't. The offensive line, these aren't guys that, came in saying, oh, I'm going to play for Rhett Lashley and I'm playing this kind of offense. I'm going to be this type of player. So you're kind of trying to make do and figure out what you have amongst the roster. Like, we talk about like the tunnel screen. With the guys we have, you don't have someone who's super dynamic with the ball in his hand at the receiver position. But let's say that's Brashard Smith, based on what we've seen him do at times in time in high school. Like in the future, Brashard Smith's going to take a couple of those a long, long way. But that's 1-2 years down the line before he's able to really be that player. So that's a future outlook for those kinds of passes. And, I see it working down the road. It's just, we don't have it right now. Offensive line, I would love a lot of these interior runs, if our interior linemen are stronger at the point of attack, maybe a Jalen Rivers needs to get an opportunity inside at guard. I know he's a freshman and all, but, if he's going to be physical, if he's going to compete better than some of what we've seen on the inside, then give him a shot. Maybe move Clark back to center where he's, more natural and give Gaynor a spot on the bench for a little bit to see what Clark has at center, and maybe Rivers is the guy, or maybe this or maybe that. I think we have to keep kind of experimenting and see what we have. Because while, this year is important because, we want to make sure that we establish that we're a team that can win these games. I think kind of heading into next year, you want to be absolutely certain with what we have, because the quarterback's going to be a question, and we can't have question marks all over the rest of the field.
All right, guys, this is our instant reaction podcast. Miami defeats Virginia. If you want to catch this ad-free, no ads, and things like that, and you can get it exclusively fast, make sure you check out the Patreon page. That, along with other interviews, podcasts, and videos, check that out. Patreon.com. Link will be in the description. All right. When I say Amari Carter, what would you say?
I hope he's okay. I hope 10 years from now, the way he plays the game, I'm worried for him, as a human being, and him being a kid, me being old now, looking at him and saying man, I hope he's all right. Because I don't understand. I don't understand. Like a friend of mine said, it's tiring. It's exhausting to watch him play sometimes, because as soon as he gets in near a play, you're oh, Amari, don't, man, don't. And then boom, you hear that signature helmet pop, and you're come on. What are you doing? It feels like it's those old Madden games with the hit stick, where every single play, you get close to it, even though you don't need it, you just flick the controller up to try to hit stick them, just because it's new. It was the first year it came out, so everyone was hit sticking everybody. Every play has to be hit stick. Every play has to be I'm knocking this guy into tomorrow. And then you see after the play, he gets up, he's walking away from the play. He had to know, right? In my mind, he had to know that was wrong. You can't do that. But it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's frustrating. And I do think that we're better when 26 and 21 are out there than when Carter's out there. No offense to him. I just don't think he's as good of a player as those other two guys. He's a lot more limited with what he can do in coverage, but I just wish he would just not make those simple mistakes to not, destroy our depth at the safety spot, especially when we didn't have Ballum, our fourth guy. It just doesn't make any sense to me how he could continue to make the same exact mistake every single game, it seems.
I agree with that. I'm with you at this point. I have a question, and I wonder if people are thinking about this, right? What are the coaches telling Amari Carter? That's what I want to know. And I know Amari Carter's responsible for his actions, but also the coaches, they got to hold some responsibility, because I would have been and said, Chris, if you get another targeting call, you're not playing the rest of the year, because when you do that, you put everybody in jeopardy, right? Because we missed several guys today because of COVID. One of those guys was Brian Balaam. At one point, Carter's kicked out the game. Hall goes down. What do you think? Because I think one part of coaching is getting players to respond to you, right? To listen to what you say. Why does the coaches take some blame for Amari Carter's actions?
Well, are you a basketball fan, Grant?
I am.
You know how long J.R. Smith has been J.R. Smith? Like J.R. Smith has been J.R. Smith, like the exact same player since he was in high school. Like he has been the same player every time he steps on the court. He's going to be J.R. Smith. He's going to chuck. He's going to shoot. He's going to take wild threes. That's just J.R. Right? And you got to figure, like, at some point the coaches probably tried to get to him, but there's just this realization that he just doesn't get it. He's going to be that guy. There's guys in baseball. There's pitchers who like make the same bad pitches every time, or hitters that can't hit the same pitch, and you're like, you got to coach them up. But then you get out there, the lights are on. There's like 7 fans in attendance, but like there's fans in attendance, and like it just doesn't click anymore. Like all the practice stuff is just gone. Like we worked on this, Amari. We worked on it. I do think that and if everyone was out there just like throwing their helmets at people like Amari does, and I would say it's definitely like a coaching issue. But I just think it's a disconnect between what he does in practice, and what he's training to do. And from the beginning, Manny was trying to like put forth this different style of tackling, like, and I think Amari just isn't able to change himself in the moment to go with what he was taught, because it's so instinctual for him to put his body out there the way that he does. And maybe it's a high school coaching issue. Honestly, like I think a lot of it is a youth coaching issue too, where you have to be really like when people send their kids to go play these youth programs, they have to watch the coaching to see how the coaches are teaching tackling. And when Amari was young, it wasn't as much of a focus. So they're probably thinking like, make a big hit. The crowd goes crazy, not correcting mistakes. And then once you're however many years, 12 years into playing a certain way, it's hard to break people of that kind of habit. So I just think it's something that's ingrained into who he is at this point. The only way to fix him of it would be to make it less of an issue and move him closer to the ball, where he doesn't have the opportunity to launch at people like he does. But the ship has sailed on moving him to linebacker 2 years ago when it should have been done. So now we're kind of stuck with this version of Amari who's not really able to help the team play or win.
Well, you said that last podcast, and I kind of agree with you, but check this out. Amari can come back next year. So if you move him to linebacker now, wouldn't it be you move him to linebacker now? If anybody in the safety position get hurt, you can move him back to safety. But if you move him to linebacker now, he can learn, and then next year he can be a full-time linebacker.
I support moving him. I don't think he adds anything for us at safety, and I think if you move him forward with the guys we have there, because with the way we play linebacker, it's kind of like a run and chase position with the way our defensive line is. So like I think he'd be better off in that spot, because I really don't want to see him like doing all kinds of crazy stuff in coverage. And I think he's definitely faster than the guys that we have, or a lot of the guys we have up in the second level. So it would be a way of kind of limiting his weaknesses and just say like, hey, go get that guy, which he's good at. He's good at go get that guy. He's not good at sit back here and cover and do this and move around. So I think it would be fine. I don't want him at striker, which was like honestly, I thought that during the course of the summer, like, hey, that could be a good fit, because maybe he's kind of like Finley, because Finley was a safety that was a little bit too big too. But but the more I see Gill play and have success, and Smith play and have success, like you really need to have like a strong ability in coverage, and to be able to move out on the edge and like kind of go cover guys in a lot of space. And I'd rather Amari not be that. But linebacker, I think he could be better than McLeod for sure. He could be better than Jennings. So, give him a shot. Who knows? Maybe he'll surprise. But yeah, by all means throw him up there, because I really rather not see him playing much safety.
All right. Somebody, we got to ask this, because I feel like this is a weekly question. Listen, people really want this to happen. People want Blake Baker fired. Is that an overreaction, or are you jumping on that bandwagon yet?
I don't think it's going to happen. I wouldn't anticipate that occurring anytime soon, because he's a Manny guy.
I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I'm saying if you had the ability to fire him, would you fire him?
Well, if he gets fired, like, who are we going to bring? Are we going to bring in someone that's going to come up with a whole new defensive scheme? Because I do think our scheme right now is very basic. We don't do a tremendous amount, but at the same time, we didn't do a tremendous amount with Manny either. When he was the defensive coordinator, he ran a little, maybe he put more blitzes into play, but he ran a lot of base like Manny did, like Blake does. Except Manny had interior guys on the defensive line that could kind of create the havoc and create the pressure that allowed everything else to work. And we don't have enough of that right now.
All right, let me hold on 1 second.
Go ahead.
Let me kind of rephrase the question, okay? There's two sets of people. There's people A who's saying Coach Baker needs to go. We're getting destroyed. He isn't spying the quarterback when he should. The long play against North Carolina last year, people still talking about that. Miami Hurricanes fans never let that play go down. You look up today, we gave up 14 points to a silly offense when we really knew what they were. I mean, again, it's easy for me to say, but we kind of knew that when two quarterbacks came in, they were running the ball. When another quarterback came in, it was either going to be a run or a throw. And then you got the other people to say, listen, you can't blame Coach Baker. One reason you can't blame Coach Baker is because of the type of college football we're living in now, where people score a lot of points. Another reason you can't is because it's the players' jobs to execute. For example, tonight, you look at that game and you can technically say, hey, we only gave up 7 points. The 7 points was just a hell of a play by the tight end making the catch. The other was Al Blades and Gervin Hall not getting lined up right. We give up a fluky touchdown. So when you look at it that way, I guess I'm asking, there's two sets of people that Miami fans, some people want them to go, some people want them to stay. Is it a fair question?
I don't think I've seen enough to say he should be fired. And I think people are overreacting because of the way the defense plays with like kind of bend, don't break. And people say that as it's like when they hear that, they're like, that's the worst thing I've ever heard. Why would you want to bend? Well, the reason that you bend is that it's in the name, so you don't break. And a lot of what we do is limiting the big plays. And like you said, like the big plays that we gave up today, the biggest one would be the touchdown. That's just Al. Like, I don't know what Al was thinking on that play. I don't know why he was so far away from the receiver, but like the quarterback, before the play, he saw how far Al was off, and he was like, I'm just going to chuck it up because he's not covering my guy. So I'm just going to throw it up to him, And if that doesn't go down, then maybe we hold them to 7 points, and those 7 points came in the first 4 minutes of the game, 5 minutes of the game. So if we shut them out for 55 minutes after that point, then bend don't break is pretty good. It's just that like play to play, it's frustrating because we do give up a lot of plays that we shouldn't. And we're like, how could we give this play up? So I think people are reacting to the play to play, which is the same part where my frustration comes in when it feels like we don't do much outside of the base and we kind of like let them get these plays that you're like, how could we possibly give that up? Like I even went back and watched some of the Louisville game a couple of days ago, and there was like so many plays where the quarterback kind of broke free and got 10, 15 yards. Early on, he got like a 30-yarder. Like, how do we give that up? We're Miami. You're supposed to be fast at line. Like, a linebacker we're supposed to be, but they don't score on the drive. And it's like, oh, I guess that works for us, I do think we're a couple, like, really good players away. Like, we're a great player at linebacker away from having an elite defense. We're definitely a great interior pass rusher away. But you start putting those guys in, and we're able to start creating some tackles for loss like we did back in 2017. I think this defense would look a lot more impressive because we would have the big plays that are supposed to go along with this kind of defense.
I agree with that. I like that answer. So we had this conversation, or I had a Q&A earlier, and somebody said the cornerback position was our weakest position. I was like, I really think even after coming in this game, I still think our linebacking core it still needs. We need that linebacker that can make a big impact. What'd you think about Steve tonight? 1 second I look, he seems slow, seems like he's second guessing himself. The next play I see him run down, make a good play on the outside contain play. What'd you see?
He's got quicker feet in action than a lot of than Jennings and McLeod do. And I think that he started to trust himself. He's played so little. Like and he's always been hurt. So like he's a dude that just needs reps. Like he needs to get on the field to like see how fast the game goes because it's been so long since he's played minutes in real competitive games. So he needs to be out there getting reps to kind of feel out the game and to see what's going on. And he gave up a big play, and a lot of people are getting on him. I saw about the quarterback the quarterback run on 3rd and 1 in that last drive because it was his overrunning and trying to crash down on it that allowed the quarterback to get that wide open lane, and he could have made the tackle in the backfield. But I get that's also him trying to make a play. He's trying to get in the backfield and do something. If it wasn't him, if it was McLeod, probably would have been standing there, and the quarterback running right at him, not because of his own ability to read the play, just because he wouldn't have moved in time. There early on there was a play where on a 3rd down where McLeod stopped him on a screen, and the only reason he stopped him is because that he never got off of his spot. So they ran the screen right at him, expecting McLeod to run with the play, that away action, but he was just standing there, and all of a sudden he was right there where they threw the screen, and he just kind of tackled him because he never moved off his spot. So I like the idea of our linebackers being aggressive, attacking, and doing whatever they can to be aggressive and try to create plays, because that's the kind of stuff that I think will eventually lead us to a lot of victories. If we're able to do that as consistently as possible. Because if we're going to sit back and hope that things go well and just let people beat up on us, then we're never going to make the big plays and create the big plays that we need to win. And I think we got some guys coming in that can do that, so we'll see what happens. But I would say, let Steve get some run, especially out there with Brooks, 2 attacking guys. I'm all for it.
All right, give me your defensive MVP tonight. Mine would be Gervin Hall, man. This is something else I talked about pregame. I said Gervin Hall, he isn't a guy that's going to make flashy plays. He's a guy who's just going to get his job. He's just going to get the job done by any means necessary. He's a guy who sometimes you forget he's on the field. And when I say that, I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean it in I'm rarely saying, oh, that was a mistake by Gervin Hall. Now tonight, him and Al Blaze, they had that cornerback, that wide receiver situation. We don't know whose fault that was. But I will say this, man, Gervin Hall was my MVP tonight. He was just always there, making the tackle, not a lot of missed tackles, batted passes. He even had some punt return duties. What do you think about Gervin Hall? And then who's your defensive MVP?
I do think Gervin made a couple of nice plays. There was the one play he made early in the game on the tight end where that was the difference between him and the way he plays and the way Amari plays is that, if it was Amari probably would have hit him up high and it would have been, basically it, right? But what does Gervin do? He goes in front of the receiver and he puts his body where the ball is going to try to draw the ball free, and he does exactly that. And you're like, yes, that's how you have to play safety now. You have to go for the ball. Do your best to make contact on that, on the hands, and try to jar it free that way. You can't jar it free the old way anymore. And Bubba got away with one early because I really thought that was going to be a targeting call back-to-back almost with Amari. But, of the 3 of them, Gervin made the best play. And yes, he did make some plays later too. And he's a guy that just has to be out there getting reps himself because he's physically very impressive, but he just kind of has to catch up quite a bit when it comes the different mental parts of the game. But he was good. I'm kind of going to go in the same line as you with, probably in my mind, Frierson again. And while Frierson didn't have the big plays that other people did, he did so many little things here and there that it's oh, that is a smart play. That's the kind of thing you're supposed to. And in the same way, probably a guy like Ivy, minus 1 or 2 bad plays, they're doing a lot of things that, are helping the team win that aren't getting a lot of notice, which is always great to see. There was one where Gill, and it was actually good communication between Gill and Hall, which is what you hope for these guys to do, where Gill saw the receiver kind of splitting all the way out to the edge, and he fouled him out, and Hall started to go. Then Gill went back, he gave him the stop, and he pointed out who he was supposed to get, and then Gill went to cover him, and Hall saw who he had, and then they kept going with motion, but they kept pointing and saying, okay, now he's yours. So things like that, I'd love to see it because that's what you need in a defense like this because, if we're going to stay in base, we're not going to have guys manned up all over with corners. So the striker and the safeties have to be really smart. And I think they all had smart game today.
All right, man. The defense only allowed 14 points. It's so weird because our defense is keeping us in these games, but at times you're watching it and it's so frustrating. It's like, even in the pick game, you look at that game and I think it's like you said, the bend but don't break. But it is what it is, and I think we're a linebacker away in a play here and there from being, a top 5, top 10 defense, honestly.
You put like the guys we're getting in this next class, and I know it's always easy to say, the guys we're getting next year, the recruits, but like you can't underestimate the talent of guys like Leonard Taylor and James Williams and Cam Kinchins and those guys. Like you get James Williams and you put him in the middle of a defense. Like I know people are like safety, but I'm in my mind he's one of those two linebackers, and you let him move around the middle of the field, and he's going to get his hands in a lot of passing lanes. He's going to get his hands on a lot of running backs trying to make those extra yards. He's going to stop a lot of quarterbacks trying to make some extra yards with their feet. He is going to be a huge impact player in the middle of that field, and I want him as close to the line of scrimmage as humanly possible to get him involved in as many plays as possible. I want him with like crazy tackle numbers. I want him with like 90 tackles in a season, just because he's always going to be up and around the play. You get him up there and you get Taylor rushing the passer at defensive tackle. Like those are guys who can make a difference in a defense, and they'll create some of those huge plays that allow like 2017, like bend but don't break. Think of all the turnovers we had. That was the same style of defense. Think of all the sacks that we had and the tackles for loss from McIntosh and Norton. Like that's the same defense. We just had guys who can go out there and make those plays.
All right, man. Let's look at our Twitter poll. I want to start doing like a Twitter poll to end the podcast with, or the video with. And my question tonight was, after tonight's game, how are you feeling? And the options were: a win is a win, I'm not happy, fire Blake Baker, or 5-1, I feel good. 328 people voted. I put this up an hour ago. 328 people voted. 42% said a win is a win. 27% said I'm not happy. 15% said fire Blake Baker. And 16% says 5-1, I feel good. Which one would you vote for and why? You got a win is a win, I'm not happy, fire Baker, or 5-1, I feel good. Which one are you and why?
I think I go a win is a win, especially headed into a bye. With time. I know our bye weeks are always disasters. I don't know what we do, but I think I go a win is a win, because that was a game we had to win, and like I said before, it's a game that we probably lose last year. And I think like with the 2 weeks and you have a chance to kind of reset, like the specific memory of this game and how the offense kind of struggled is going to fade away. But, if we get to, we win a couple more games here and there, and then, we get to, like, even if it's 8-2, we lose one that we're not supposed to, I still think it makes us a contender for the ACC and to get into the title game. I think it still offers up a possibility for people to look at us like a really legitimately rising program. I don't think it loses out any issues with recruits or anything like that. So if we lost to Virginia, then we'd be one of these many teams. Like we'd be one of the teams that lost today and people are laughing at, like they're laughing at Penn State. They would laugh at us too. And we didn't want to be that, we didn't want to get mocked by the national media in a game that we should win. So I'm okay with just avoiding that for the week, even though it wasn't super pretty. We'll just move on into the bye, accept that we're a 5-1 team, even though we may not have the actual talent of a 5-1 team, and just keep pushing forward and hopefully make it 6-1 next time out.
Right, man. I mean, let's see. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I'm after last season. If you would have asked me last season, I probably would have been a little bit more skeptical. Like, let's say last season didn't happen, but this season did. But after dealing with last season, missed field goals, players going out and partying, losing to FIU, losing to Georgia Tech. Listen, man, I'm not taking these wins for granted, and I'm going to be happy. You know, when we win, I get the troll on Twitter. I basically was non-existent at some points last year because of how embarrassed we were as a team and as a fan base. And I am not. Am I? You know, do I think we're the best team in the ACC? No. Do I think we're on Clemson's level? No. Do I think we're on Notre Dame's level? I think when you put us up against Notre Dame, I think we can win that game. That's just how it always is when you put speed against Notre Dame. They always get exposed.
Right.
But I do think, are we the second best team in the ACC? Or I would say yes, we are the second best team in the ACC. Until
they're losing.
Right now,
teams are losing.
Go ahead.
Those other teams are like UNC lost to Florida State. We didn't lose to Florida State.
Right.
Like Virginia Tech lost to Wake. Like we probably wouldn't lose to Wake. Like we win these games. Yeah.
And let me tell you something else. If we end the season with 9 wins, that's better than 6 wins. And I would assume, and I'm just assuming, that if this coaching staff can pull a James Williams after the debacle we went through last year, I assume that 9 wins, maybe 10 wins, will do us some good in recruiting. The thing is, though, this is what we got to look at right here, Chris. How do we play against NC State coming off the bye week? Because if we play bad against NC State, I'm going in on Manny Diaz. Because then we've got to look at that whole bye week thing as a serious coaching problem if we play bad against NC State.
Well, we started this game looking like it was after a bye with how sluggish and like.
We started off on fire. We started off
after
the first 2 plays.
After the scripted drive, yes. Like once we got the scripted drive, we're lords of the scripted drive. But once that got over, like, and we actually like the game started to like really kick in, like the actual game began, then it was like walking through mud for a while. Like there was no energy, there was no excitement on either side of the ball, really. That's what kind of led to the game being like a very long game. But, you know, I think we need to avoid that at all costs. We need to come out next week or 2 weeks and come out with some fire and some pop and, you know, have big plays kind of like we did today, but keep the energy up as much as possible to not fade away and just allow NC State to do things to us, because they're not a great team, much like UVA wasn't a great team, much like some of these other squads we've been playing aren't. You know, Pitt isn't a great team. You know, we have to just make sure we go out and take care of business, and we can't let this bye week thing kick up, because while they're not great, like anyone is going to beat you if you go out there and play like we've played after some of these bye weeks. And we're seeing all around the country, like 2020 is creating some very interesting games where like underdog teams are winning because the favorite team goes out there and they play sloppy or they play sluggish. Like Rutgers won today. Like Rutgers beat Michigan State today, and it was like they won by I think like 2 or 3 touchdowns or something. So, you know, we can't let that happen to us. We have to make sure we go out there and play the game we're supposed to play.
And, I mean, I'm just saying that the thing will be is if we come out and we look like slop against NC State, the narrative will be, what the hell is up with Manny Diaz and this coaching staff coming off bye weeks? Because all my life, as much as I've followed football, I've only heard of there's only pros to having a bye week in the middle of the season. You know, I've never heard of a team just being repeatedly bad after a bye week. And obviously the last time the Clemson was after a bye week, but we cut them some slack because it's Clemson. But if we look bad against NC State, that's a serious narrative that will ring waves, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. That falls entirely on the coaches at that point. It would fall entirely on the coaches.
So we got the bye week next week. What you got planned for the bye week, my friend?
Besides resting as much as possible with all the football that's going on and enjoying a little bit of time. But we're doing everything we can to kind of like talk about, you know, honestly, maybe a good thing for us would be to go and look at like bye weeks through history. Like how have we come out in games like this? Is it a trend? And maybe look at, over the past, ever since Manny's been here, how we've done. Because I know very recently, obviously last year it was devastating after the buys, but has it been going on longer than just that? Like, is it something that's ever like been something we've been frustrated with in the past? Maybe even over the course of the country, see how it's going. But that could be something worth looking at, because like you said, if it happens again, it's going to be a big story. So maybe we can get out ahead of it a little bit. But also I think like looking on to the rest of the season, like kind of coming up with like where we are right now. Like we did a power rankings of our top 20 players before the season started. So we've been talking about reassessing that to see where we are. And, there's definitely a lot of movement that's going to be on there, and seeing where guys were where we expected them to be to where they are right now on a player to player level. Like if you had to pick out our top 5 players, I think a couple of those guys would be ones that we expected, but probably a couple of them maybe not so much. So I think that would be something interested in, and maybe even putting it out to the fans to see what they think.
All right. We'll be doing a lot of things over here. Real quick, this tweet just popped up, and I want to get your opinion on it since I have you on here. Cameron Harris just tweeted this out. He said, "Disrespected me 3 games straight. I'm going to find a way to overcome that. Keep down me." Smiley face. Is he talking to the coaching staff?
I don't think so. I mean, that would be.
I mean, who is he? I mean, who disrespect? Like, this is how I read that, and maybe I'm just sensationalizing things. I could be. Let me know if I'm wrong. I read that is you're taking away my carries 3 straight games. Like,
I could see that. I'm hoping maybe it's just me hoping it's not to be anything like that.
I mean, the fan base ain't disrespecting him. I think he's talking about the coaches.
Well, you do see people. There's a little bit of heat out there, and I'm guessing that a lot of these guys, when they get home, the first thing they do is they flip their phone on and they search their name to see what people are saying. There's definitely been a couple fans here and there that have been saying things like, he looks this, he looks slow, the running game is awful, Cam blah blah blah. I saw some people like kind of openly wondering if he was hurt, like maybe because he's not playing the same, doesn't look the same. Maybe that's a little bit out there. I don't think the coaches are disrespecting him by getting young guys some run. I mean, he himself was a young guy that we got some run last year when DJ was here. It wasn't disrespecting DJ. It was, giving the young kid a chance to get some burn, just like we weren't disrespecting Homer when DJ got some run, and Walton wasn't disrespected when we got Homer some run. That's just what happens with running backs, especially in a game that you're looking like you're going to win. No reason to run Cam 25 times, especially with him headed to the league more likely than not after the season. So maybe I'm just being optimistic, but yeah, it wouldn't be a great look if that's. We'll see if it gets deleted in the next 20 minutes.
Well, because the reason that I thought that was because I remember thinking this. I was like, man, Cameron Harris, he gets taken out a lot, because like I said earlier, I was surprised by how the rotation of the running backs has been going. And late in the game, it wasn't Cameron Harris in the game. It was Robert Burns.
Well, I think what Lashley's always done, Lashley's a big like hot hand runner.
He's disrespecting him. Is Lashley disrespecting him?
I don't think. Lashley runs the hot hand, man. That's always been his thing, no matter where he's been. When he was at Auburn and he was calling plays in 2016, he had Kerryon Johnson, who was really good at when he was in college. And there was a drive I remember watching when I was going back and watching some of those games where he ran the fullback like 7 times in a row on the drive. And Kerryon was out there just blocking. And you got to say to yourself, like, what's Kerryon thinking? That it's been the fullback 7 times in a row. But the fullback was getting like 4 or 5 yards a carry, 4 or 5 yards, 4 or 5, like one after the other after the other. That's what Lashley does. He rides hot hands. He'll ride them all game. And I think Chaney, especially late, was the hot hand. The running game as a whole really wasn't working much early on. So, if Chaney's running, why not run him? And then with Burns, I think it's like we said before, Burns always gets his touches at the end of the game. So Cam should know that's kind of the way that rolls. So I don't know. I don't think it's quite that. I think it's just like, the guys always post stuff after the game. It's always about, being disrespected, and we showed the world and all that. So I'm not super worried about it. I expect the message boards to blow up.
But you think he's talking about the fans though?
Yeah, I think he's talking about like people saying he's this, he's that, the running game's bad. Maybe he's trying to defend like all of them a little bit, where because we're questioning the offense, and the fans on Twitter are questioning the offense pretty significantly. When he searches his name up, he searches Cam Harris, he's getting tweets him all throughout the game. So he gets a run for 1 yard, and he sees oh man, Cam looks slow, Cam looks hurt, Cam looks whatever. Those are all popping up at once. It's easy for him to. You can even search Cam Harris slow, and he'll get all those tweets. So, I'm sure it's all right.
All right.
Or it better be all right.
Yeah. Hey, well, I'm definitely gonna keep my eye on it. It'll be interesting to see what he was talking about, because honestly, I think we both made good cases from seeing, when you read that tweet, mine instantly went to the coaches, yours went to the fan base. So, it'll be interesting. Maybe he's just saying that as just to motivate himself to go harder and to come back better. I love Cam Harris, so we'll definitely figure it out, man. But Chris, man, as always, I appreciate you, and we'll definitely link back up this week to do State of the Canes and talk about how we feel during the bye week.
All right, Grant, I appreciate the time, man. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Chris, thank you, man.